Welcome to the San Mateo Arboretum Society's Zoom seminar, ABCs of Setting Up Drip Irrigation. It will last approximately 90 minutes and will be recorded. Feel free to ask questions at any time. We will try to answer questions as they come up, but some may have to wait until completion of the presentation. Write your questions by clicking on the chat box icon at the bottom of the screen, or email them to smasvol@gmail.com. A few days after the presentation, you will be emailed a link to the recording and a link to an evaluation form to provide feedback for us. Before we start, a little information about what's happening at the Arboretum Society. Our nursery in San Mateo Central Park is open 11 to 2 on Saturdays and Sundays. You enter the north gate and we ask that you wear a mask. Payment is by credit or debit card and Apple Pay. No cash accepted. We may be closed due to weather conditions now that we're getting close to winter. While you're in Central Park, visit the Rose Garden, the Butterfly Hummingbird Garden, and our new demonstration gardens. All are maintained by the Arboretum Society volunteers. In addition, there is an outdoor art exhibit open 10 to 3 Friday through Sunday in the Arboretum Society's Victorian Garden. The exhibit will close sometime in December for the winter. Today's workshop presenter is Frank Niccoli. Frank has been a gardener for over 50 years. He was 7 when his grandmother taught him the magic in seeds. Frank has a degree in horticulture, having studied at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and the College of San Mateo. He has a degree in business psychology and is an instructor in environmental horticulture at Foothill College. He's also past president of the founding chapter of the California Landscape Contractors Association and served on the board for the Association of Professional Landscape Designers. We'd also like to thank Bosca, Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency, for providing Frank as our speaker. Bosca provides water supply planning, resource development, and conservation programs throughout the Bay Area. Check out their website for additional information, including classes and rebates for lawn replacement. You can Google Bosca, BAWSCA, and it will come up. There's a lot of information on their website. And now I will turn the program over to Frank.
Okay. How's everybody today? It's Sunday. Everybody awake out there? So I'm going to put my email in the chat because inevitably someone always asks for it. So please, if you do have questions after this presentation, you think of something, just email me. I always answer my emails within 24 hours. So, all righty, let's talk about drip systems. The first thing I want to, you're welcome, Cynthia. The first thing I want to talk about drip systems is, I want to ask a question. How many times would you like to install your drip system? Carol says 1. I imagine everyone else says once. That is the right answer. And yet, where you buy your materials is going to determine how many times you install that drip system. And let me explain that. Stay away from the big box stores. Do not go to the big box stores. Have I mentioned something about the big box stores and you want to stay away from them? Why, Frank? Because they don't have commercial grade drip equipment. They have a designation. I'll put that in the chat. That is, let me do this. So irrigation equipment has designations on them. And this is what the big box store designation is. May not be on the label, but it's there. It's garbage. So contractors buy their equipment at irrigation stores. And one of the things that contractors hates are callbacks. They do. We do not like to be called back. I was a contractor for many, many years. And one of the worst things for me is a callback when something doesn't work or something breaks. And so when I buy my irrigation material, I go to the stores that sell commercial grade. And here's one of them. This is Site One in San Carlos. It is an excellent store, 815 American Street, right around the corner from Toolland, if anybody knows where that is. The branch manager there is a guy by the name of Michael. He will help you. Kind of. If you go there when the contractors are there, he is going to ignore you. Nothing personal, but when I had my company, I was dropping $15,000 to $20,000 a month to these stores. I had 51 employees. And so when I came in, there were donuts for me, there was coffee for me. You go in, they're going to ignore you. You need to go when the contractors are not there. And that is right around 9 o'clock in the morning. Contractors get there at 7, get materials for the day. They're out of there 8:30, 9 o'clock. So go at 9. They are not busy. Don't go at noon, because that's when the contractors are on their lunch breaks, and some of these stores supply lunch for the contractors. So go about 1:30. Nobody will be there. You can buy material all day long. They will help you. Don't go at 3:30, 4 o'clock. Contractors are back there. They're getting their material for tomorrow. So go to a store where the contractors go, but don't go when the contractors are there, unless you're looking for a contractor to install stuff for you, then go. So I highly recommend Site One. Site One is lady friendly. What does that mean? Well, there are unfortunately stores that if you're a woman, they will ignore you. I hate to say it, but that's kind of just the way it is with some of these stores. Site One is not that way. Site One is very well managed, and they are lady friendly. So one of the first things we need to know about drip system is how much water do you have? And so I'm going to give you a very complicated, very scientific method of trying to figure out how much water you actually have in your landscape. Here is that complicated piece of machinery. It's a bucket. Well, okay, what do we do with this bucket? Well, this is a 5-gallon bucket. How many gallons are in a 5-gallon bucket? 5 gallons, says Carol. Thank you, Carol. You're my star so far. So I take a tape measure and I go from the top of the bucket to the bottom of the bucket with a tape measure. And these buckets measure right around 14 inches, top to bottom. So I take that 14 inches and I divide it by 5. And I mark off increments on this bucket. There should be 4 marks on the bucket. The top, of course, is the 5-gallon mark. Everybody follow me so far? Not too complicated. So what I've marked off are the gallons, how many gallons, and the marks of each 1 gallon, 2 gallons, 3 gallons, 4 gallons, and of course the top is the 5th gallon. I walk over to a hose bib that is at my job location, and I turn that thing on, shove the bucket under it, and then I start counting 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 14, 1,000, 15, 1,000, pull the bucket away. I look down into the bucket and I look at the marks that I put on my bucket. And I see how many, where the water is hitting on those marks. So if it hits the 2-gallon mark, how many gallons per minute do I have in my bucket? Well, 2 times 4 is 8. I have 8 gallons per minute going into my bucket. Now you know how many gallons per minute that is coming into your job site, your garden, whatever, your home. You figured that out very scientifically, I might add. This is what we as contractors do when we need to figure out how much water we've got available to us. When we talk about drip systems work in gallons per hour. Gallons per hour, not gallons per minute. A conventional irrigation system works on gallons per minute. So if I've got a spray irrigation system, I might be putting out 4, 5, 6 gallons per minute. Drip systems are gallons per hour. So if I've got 8 gallons per minute coming into my job site, how many gallons per hour do I have? That's right, 60 times 8, 480 gallons. That's my availability. So when you do this, write down what your availability is. On this particular project, I have 480 gallons per hour coming into that job site. That's an important number because this gives us a way to figure out how much drip line I can lay out on the project. So when we talk about drip systems, we need to understand the concept. Our water comes from Hetch Hetchy. That water is dirty. It has what is called particulate matter in it. I remember when my grandparents used to come out and visit us. I was born in Colorado. My grandparents who used to come out from Colorado. My grandfather would always go to the sink and he would take a glass of water and determine how long he was going to stay here in California to visit us by the quality of the water. He liked the water that he was getting here in California. He said it was good water. So he usually would stick around for a week or so to visit us and then go back to Colorado. We do have excellent water. It is some of the cleanest water in the world, but it does have particulate matter in it. And so we need to filter it. So the first thing we need to understand about a drip system is filtration. This is a drip filter. Inside of this is a filter. It happens to be a 150 micron mesh filter. I would not use this because it's too small. This came from the big box store. That's not what you want. You want this. Compare this or this. This is what you want. This is a much larger filtration system and a much better filtration system. Let's be honest with each other. You're not going to be cleaning this thing as often as you like, or as often as the system needs. I know because I managed irrigation systems for many, many years. And one of the worst things with the irrigation system, is specifically drip system, is nobody cleans the filters. So I want you, if you're going to be installing a drip system, to take a blood oath, which means you got to cut yourself. But, you know, that's what a blood oath is about. That you're going to be cleaning these at the solstice. March 21st, June 21st, September 21st, December 21st. Take this filter out, take it into the house, get a toothbrush and clean it and put it back in there. You don't drive very far if you don't put gas in your car. Well, it's the same with this. You're not going to get water through this system unless you clean that filter. If you look at the size of the filters, you know this one is going to clog up much, much sooner than this one. So get the commercial grade filter. The other thing that this has is a pressure reducer. That's what this red dealie is. That's a pressure reducer. This is the pressure reducer you want. So the pressure reducer reduces the amount of pressure coming into your home or your garden. And the reason for that is because we're going to be using compression fittings on our drip system. I'll show you those fittings in just a bit. Too high of a pressure and the hoses will blow off. Not if, when. So that's why we dropped the pressure down. This one happens to be a 25 PSI or a 25 PSI drip filter. You can get 25s, 30s, and 40s, depending on how much line you're going to run. For a homeowner, I recommend a 25. 25 is enough. 30 also works. This one happens to be a kit that you can get at Hunter Industries at the Site One store. You cannot buy this at Big Box. You can buy this at Big Box. And if you do buy this from Big Box, I'll give you a little suggestion. Take it home and throw it in the trash, because that's where it's eventually going to end up, in the trash. Get a decent filter, get a decent pressure reducer. This is the heart of the system. You want the system to work. The other heart of the system is your valves. This is an electromechanical device that works with a controller or an irrigation clock. The irrigation clock tells it when to turn the system on. So they work in conjunction, like so. The issue with valves when you're using drip is not the turner oner part. They will turn on. The big issue with valves is the turn off part. Remember when I said we're dealing with gallons per hour with drip systems? Well, you have to have a certain flow rate going into this valve to turn it off. A conventional valve will not turn off with a drip system. It will stick on when you're taking that month-long vacation to the Caribbean, and will stay on all month while you're basking in the sun in the Caribbean. They stick on. Part of the reason that they stick on is because the flow characteristics of the valve are not enough to allow this thing to shut off. So get a decent valve. And we're going to talk about valves right now. So Hunter Industries, and I happen to like Hunter Industries mainly because they support education, one of the few irrigation manufacturers that help support us up at Foothill. They have, looky here, drip zone control or drip control zone kits. Look at that. I can buy the whole mess already put together for me. I can get the drip valve. I can get this beautiful filter and a pressure reducer, all in a kit. When I look at the specifications of this thing, it tells me that I don't need a lot of flow. I need a half a gallon per minute flow to shut this thing off. That's not much, up to 15 gallons. So we've got plenty of flow in there. So you want to get a decent valve. And I highly recommend that you get a Hunter valve. Are these cheap? No, they're not. They're not cheap. Are they outstanding valves? Yeah, they are. They're very well made, and they will last you the life of your system if you get a decent valve. A number of different photographs here on how to install them. This is a typical installation in a box. Number of different ways to install. This one happens to have a drip sentry on it or a filter sentry. You can get those, but you want to get a decent valve. And Hunter makes a very good one. They don't pay me to advertise, by the way. I just feel that they're taking care of me up at the school. I should take care of them when I do these presentations. So there's a couple of things about drip systems that we're going to talk about now. So one of the drips that you normally will see are what are called button emitters. These are button emitters. These are exactly what you do not want in your garden. You do not want them. Let me explain. So we have a typical button emitter setup. Looks like this. There's a 1/4-inch hose with a little button emitter on it. And your plant sits here. And this thing is irrigating your plant. Now, as you know, water will travel laterally from these button emitters. Isn't that correct? Any physicists out here? Water doesn't travel laterally. It goes down. How the hell is this thing going to water the other side of the plant? So you're watering only one side of your root zone with this button emitter. The other side of the root zone is dying because it's not getting irrigated. What you're also establishing right on this side of the plant is an anaerobic plume that will cause the plant to go into decline. These are not the best way to irrigate a plant with a drip emitter. A lot of people say, okay, we'll put 2 on there. All right, it's better, but you still are missing this half and this half of the root zone of the plant. So don't do this. Leave the button emitters for the amateurs. You are taking a class from a professional, so you need to act like a professional and don't buy these button emitters. They don't work. Well, they will work, but your plants are not going to achieve their best with these button emitters. Yes, they're really nice in containers, but I'm going to show you a better way. The other thing I want to caution you on is anything that is in the 1/4-inch with inline emitters. So you can buy this real cool 1/4-inch. It's actually 11 millimeter, and it's got emitters in it. Don't buy this unless you want dead plants. These clog. These are made with a laser. They shoot a laser in there and they make a tiny little hole that is supposed to be calibrated for drip. It doesn't work. 1/4-inch or 11 mil does not work. You want 1/2 inch or 17 mil. We're going to talk more about this in a minute, but I just want to say that don't buy this 1/4-inch stuff. Trust me, I used this stuff when it first came out as a contractor, and I had callbacks, and I hate callbacks. So I had to pull all this stuff out and redo it on my own nickel. And that's when I learned that this stuff doesn't work. How did I know that it didn't work? Because the client was calling me and there were dead plants all over the yard. The issue with a drip system is you don't know it's not working until your plants are dead. Unfortunately, you're not going to walk around and check every plant to make sure that there's water coming out of those emitters. You're not going to do it. And so you have dead plants. It's the only way you tell when your system's not working. Dead plants everywhere. So that being said, we want to do a reasonable layout on our system. And reasonable layout, let me just check the chat and see if there's anything going on in here. Once, but not realistic, yes. Ewing on mission irrigation. Yeah, Ewing is pretty good too. Not as, in my opinion, not as good as Site One. And if you're in, is that Hayward, I believe? I think there's a Site One over there that will also take care of you. So when we're designing our irrigation system, we've figured out a couple of things. We know how much water is going into our site. 5-gallon bucket, turn the water on for 15 seconds, measure the amount of water that's in that 5-gallon bucket, multiply that by 4. 4 times 15 is 1 minute. And that gives you how much water you have going in per minute into your system. Multiply that by 60 and you have gallons per hour. And that's what we want. We want gallons per hour. So let's take that knowledge and put it to use. And by the way, this is the way that you calibrate your irrigation system to your controller. You need to know how much water you're putting down. When we irrigate with an irrigation controller, if we have a system that is putting out 0.9 gallons per hour per emitter, it makes it very simple to calibrate. When we purchase irrigation with inline emitters, and this is the 1/2-inch stuff, and the inline emitter happens to be this hole right here. We're going to show you some pictures of that in a minute. This happens to be a 0.9 gallon per hour emitter. In other words, I'm getting about a gallon per hour out of this one emitter. You can also buy this stuff in 0.6 gallons per hour. You can buy it in 1.8 gallons per hour. Why the difference? What kind of soil do you have? If you have a heavy clay soil, you want to put down water low and slow. And so you're going to have a tendency to go to the 0.6, 0.9. If you've got sandy soil, if you're living up on Sand Hill Road, why did it get its name? Well, it's Sand Hill Road. You're going to use 1.8 gallons per hour as your delivery system. So that's why they make it in different configurations. You can also get these emitters spaced every 6 inches, every 12 inches, and every 18 inches. Why do they do that? What's your crop again? Are you growing leafy greens and lettuce? Then you're going to have it 0.6, or you're going to have it every 6 inches. Are you doing shrubs? Then it's going to be every 12 inches. Are you doing ground covers and such like that? Well, 18 inches is adequate. So that's why they make the different configurations. So you have an emitter every 12, or I'm sorry, an emitter every 6 inches, emitter every 12 inches, and an emitter every 18 inches. And that is corresponding to the type of soil you have and the crop that you're growing. 0.6, 0.9, and 1.8 are your gallons per hour that's coming out of this hose. So there are different manufacturers of these drip hoses. This is Hunter's drip hose. It has a cloth-like substance on it. This is actually recycled plastic that they're spinning into a cloth. And they're putting it on the outside of their drip hose. And in essence, this is what it is with cloth on it. So it has an emitter in here. Their take on this is that the cloth is going to fill up with water, and it's going to spread the water out by capillary action to the plant material and water it much more efficiently. Does it do that, and does it do a good job? Yes, it does. It does a very good job. This is one of the better of the drip lines that are out there, and this is Hunter's. Hunter also has a interesting product called EcoMap. And this is EcoMap. Essentially, it's that last piece that I showed you with a cloth. So here is that piece that I just showed you, this, and they sew it to this cloth. Where do you use this? This lays underground, 4 to 6 inches underground like this, or like this, whatever way you like. I like to install it like this. And you're using it to manage turf. So we've done some work putting this under a turf. I was responsible for helping the city of San Jose with their demonstrations at Guadalupe Gardens down on their demonstration gardens. And we put this under a number of different kinds of turf because we wanted to see how it worked. Hunter gave us the product. We installed it over there. A woman by the name of Amber Schott was in charge of that project, and she brought me in to teach the class on how to use this stuff. Does it work? Yeah, it works very well. Good news, bad news. You got to dig out a lot of soil to get this stuff under your turf. I mean, you got to dig the whole thing out. So this is Hunter's EcoMat. It's a very good product. I happen to like it. What product do I have at my own house? I'm glad you asked me that question. I have a product called Netafim. And I want to talk about Netafim. So this is the Netafim emitter, and we're gonna start with the emitter first. This emitter has a number of different chambers in it. So this emitter actually looks like, let me see if I can find it, this. Okay, this is what it kind of looks like. That's what I was just showing you on that brown line that I show you. So their emitters are in something called Tech Line CV drip emitter, 0.9 gallons per hour, 12-inch emitter spacing is what they're telling you here. And that's what this happens to be. And inside of that emitter are these veins, if you will. So the water enters into the emitter and begins to spin. These veins cause it to spin. Why is it doing that? Well, it's taking the particulate matter that might have gotten by the filter, and you will get stuff that'll get by that filter, by the by. That filter, even though it is 150 micron mesh, is still picking up stuff. So it begins to cause the water to spin, which kicks the debris to the outside, and it pushes that debris to the end of the hose. So this is an innovation that Netafim has built into their system to keep it from clogging. Netafim is the only system that has this type of an emitter in it. Hunter doesn't have it. None of the others. These button emitters do not have it. So it keeps the water somewhat clean as it leaves the hose. And that's what you want. You don't want your hose to clog. And that's why I think Netafim is a better product. So when we talk about Netafim, we're talking about a system that is, let me come over here to landscape and turf. So you go to the Netafim site, Netafim. Agriculture, yeah, sure, they're big in ag. So this is inside of a greenhouse. They're growing long, long rows. This is probably an apple field, all on Netafim drip. This is their filtration and system. This is them laying it out. So you're not going to be doing this at your house. I guarantee you that. So when we're doing the drip systems for our own gardens. We have filtration systems. This is the one I showed you, the manual screen filter. Netafim makes a really good one. We're looking at water meters if you want, point source components. But the key to the whole system is this tech line. Netafim gives you a calculator that you can use, but you know, it's more, and it does work. So they help you plan your drip system. And this calculator works fairly well. I'll pull it up just so that you have an idea of what we're looking at. So where are you going to put it? You're going to put it on the surface or subsurface? With Netafim, you can go either. What are you irrigating? Well, shrubs and ground cover. What's your soil type? Let's go clay. What's your inlet pressure? We're going to drop it down to 30 because we've got a pressure reducer on there. And what's your irrigated area in square feet? So let's go, I don't know, 400 square feet or 2,400, that works. What flow rate am I going to go? 0.26, 0.42, 0.61, 0.92. What's my emitter spacing? Let's go with 12. And there we go. So what this is going to do is give you some details about product. And you just tell it to calculate it and it'll do help you calculate. You can get a kit from Netafim. They will sell you the valve, the pressure reducer, and the filter all in one. And we'll talk about TechLine in just a minute. So their products are very good. The Netafim system started in Israel, and they were tasked for growing crops in the desert. And they literally have miles and miles and miles of this stuff out there to irrigate. So it's a very good product. When we look at the product itself, you can get one with a copper stripe in it. It supposedly keeps the roots from growing in there, and that's all fine, well, and good. You can reduce your water use anywhere from 39 to 79% from a regular spray system to a Netafim system. So, but just by installing that, that's what you're going to save in water. So Netafim makes an excellent product. I want to get into some configurations. And this is what I have at my house. I like the system a lot. Mainly because it's easy to install. They also have this new piece here for containers. I have not tried it yet, but it is specifically for growing in containers. When we get into the system itself and how we configure the system, it's simple. It's real easy. So these layouts are key. So let me bump my screen up. So essentially what they've got here is this manifold that you can build out of PVC if you want to. You don't have to. Along with a hose with inline emitters, you can buy what is called tight line. Tight line means no emitters. It's called distribution tubing also. So you can install the Netafim subsurface if you like, or on the surface. What's better, really up to you in terms of what you want to do. But there are a number of different configurations that you can do. So this is on the ag side. This is all watered by Netafim. I mean, literally miles of this stuff. So when I mentioned that at the beginning of this whole thing, we talked about how much water you've got, and I had you do a calculation of how much water using the bucket. And we determined that if we had 2 gallons for the 15 seconds, we multiply that by 4, because there are 4 15-second increments in a minute, and that gave us 8 gallons. Multiply that by 60, that gave us 480 gallons of available water per hour that I can use on my site. So if I were to use a drip hose with a 0.9 gallons per hour, and let's just kick it up to 1 gallon per hour, and it's at 12 inches every time there's an emitter, how many feet of Netafim can I lay out if I'm getting availability of 480 gallons per hour? Real simple, 480 feet. 480 feet. Everybody follow me on that? So if I've got a shrub border and it's 10 by 48, I can irrigate that easily enough with a Netafim system by putting out 480 feet of this particular hose. Each emitter is putting out approximately 1 gallon per hour. And so I can calibrate this system based on those facts. If I water the system for a half hour, I get 240 gallons of water going down to my landscape. Why is that important? Because I want to know how much water I'm putting down. You hear things like the plants need 1 inch of water per week, or 2 inches of water per week. By knowing these calculations, you can figure out exactly how far down your water is going. So when you lay out your drip irrigation system, you turn it on and you begin to measure how far down the water is going in a given amount of time. 480 if on one valve. Yeah, that's right, Katie. 480 on one valve. You're dealing with gallons per hour. You have plenty of water on one valve. Would you do it that way? Well, maybe if your site is large enough, you can do that on one valve. So by measuring the amount of water going into the soil in a given amount of time, I can figure out how much water I need to apply. So I turn my system on and I take a soil probe and I pull a core out and I look how far the water has gone down in 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes. What's the determining factor here? My soil type. If I'm dealing with a clay soil, the water is going to infiltrate into that clay soil slower than if it was sandy. The sandy soils will allow that water to go through it rather rapidly. The clay soils are a lot slower. How do I determine what kind of soil do I have? Again, this is very simple to do. Go outside with a trowel and a jar. Fill that jar halfway up with some soil. Once I have it filled up with soil, then I put some water in it. Let me go to this and soil. So most of you have seen this soil chart. Find one that's bigger. There we go. So I've got my jar halfway full of soil, and I add some water to it, almost to the top. And then I put a tablespoon of dishwashing detergent in it. Doesn't matter what kind. And I shake it up. I want to shake it up for a good 4 to 5 minutes. And then I set it on the counter and let it sit. And then again, I take my tape measure, and the sand will be on the bottom. The loam will be in the middle, and the clay will be on top. I measure each one of those. And then I come over here and determine where it's falling on my soil chart. So let's say I measure it, and I measure the amount of soil that's in that jar. And let's say I have 4 inches of soil in there, and 2 inches of that are sand. I come over here to the sand, and it's at 50%. So all I do is take my line and go to 50%. And then I figure out where the clay and silt fall. So this line will intersect with the clay silt line, which will give me my soil type. So let's just say that silt, clay, loam intersects over here in this quadrant. I've got a silty clay loam soil, which means that when I figure out my rate of infiltration, it's going to be faster. In other words, the water is going to go into the soil much faster than a clay. So if I have 50% clay, which is not unusual when we get into Palo Alto, some of those areas where they have those heavy clay layers, 50, 60, 70% clay. Well, somewhere along the way, I take my ruler and lay it across here. It's going to intersect with silt and sand. So that's a real simple way of figuring out what kind of a soil texture that you have. Back to my drip system. I'm going to use that information to figure out how much water is going into my soil at any given amount of time. And that's how I set up my irrigation controller. I don't want to over irrigate. I don't want to under irrigate. I want to go just right. When I'm dealing with gallons per minute, it's easy to under or over. With gallons per hour, it's not as critical that you hit the time exactly on the button. When you're dealing with gallons per minute and you're using spray heads and you're putting out 4, 5, 6, 8 gallons per minute, it's easy to over irrigate. Real simple. If you add just an extra minute on there, you're getting 8 gallons more. Whereas if you're dealing with a drip system and you're dealing with gallons per hour, 1 extra minute or 2 extra minutes on the irrigation controller is not critical. But you want to calibrate it so that you're getting the right amount of water down on your system. So let's go back to looking at these configurations on the Netafim systems. So I can do a number of different things with my Netafim systems. Netafim garden. I can do different configurations. I can do this. So if I've got a veggie garden, these are 14 inches apart. This is the plume of water that you're getting on this in I believe this is an hour. So this is the plume of water that we're getting on that. Let me go back to this. This is all Netafim. You can see the hoses right here. There's a hose running this way and a hose running this way, 14 inches apart. 14 inches is your sweet spot with these systems. 14 inches in your veggie beds. You can also be creative and do something like this. If I'm growing citrus, I can lay my Netafim out in a circular pattern around my citrus or around my trees. I can do something like this. This is all irrigated by Netafim, all on drip. So is this. I can do something like this. The key to these systems is flexibility. This one is a little on the hokey side, but it will work. It'll work in this veggie bed. The key is turning the system on and watching how the plumes of water develop once it is on. So this is what is happening here. Install the system 14 inches apart, turn it on, and when do the plumes of water meet? That indicates that you're getting water evenly distributed over the entire landscape, if that's what you want. If you're planting veggies, the key to this is don't put the veggie right here, put the veggie right next to the emitter, or offset it slightly so that you're irrigating where the plant is. It is the same with shrubs. If you're putting in a new system, then you're going to be planting the shrubs where the emitters are. And there are a number of different ways that you can do that. You can do a circular run around your trees. As they have done here. As this tree grows, you push the emitter line out. So when you plant a tree, you never want to have the water at the trunk like this one is. This emitter line is right on the trunk. You don't want to do that. You want it away from the trunk. Having the water hit that trunk is a good way to rot that tree out. So as these plants grow, you add another line of emitter line. It's really simple stuff. This gives you an indication of the drip line of the tree. Remember that the roots are not under that drip line. They're 2 to 3 to 4 times further than the drip line. I don't know where that myth started, but it's not true. The roots go beyond the drip line. So you want to make sure that you extend that out on your trees. Certain trees do not work on drip. Redwoods, no way. You'll never be able to irrigate a redwood tree on a drip line. It does not work. They need a lot of water. Magnolias, nope. Magnolias need 40 to 80 gallons of water a day. So if you're going to be putting a ton of drip line out there for that. So this is the correct way to irrigate a tree. It's circular. The drip line is 12 to 18 inches away from the tree itself. Here it is in diagram. Your root system will do this. And by the way, it doesn't have to be a complete circle. You can just close off this end of the drip so that water doesn't come out. There's a Netafim in a cornfield. Real simple. Surface and subsurface, all using Netafim. So the key to this whole thing, as I said, is flexibility. How does it work on a slope? That's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked me that. Because we're putting the water down slowly, it usually does not have a chance to run off, so that you can lay this Netafim system down on a slope quite easily. And by the way, you never go up and down the slope. You always go across the slope when you're irrigating it. If you go up and down, doesn't quite work as well. You're going to get a lot of water down at the bottom of the hill. You want to cross the slope. So this system works, again, 14 inches apart. I've got a ground cover here, whatever, Trachlospermum jasminoides. So you'll have less runoff, less problems with erosion, less problem with overwatering on a slope. You'll notice this line here is my feed line. So all I've done is take this feed line and run it across the system so that it will water correctly. The system is real easy to install. And I'm going to talk about fittings in just a minute. You can see the plumes of water coming out of this. So once you install it, turn on your system, look at your watch, and watch how much time elapses as these plumes of water develop. And that's going to give you an indication on how long your system needs to be on. If it does this, in comparison to this is not quite enough time. This is about right, getting to the point where over on this side here, we're overwatering. If you want to do a manifold system, you can drop some PVC in the ground. You can do it that way. If you want to do this kind of a system, you can. It's very, very flexible. This one isn't quite 14 inches apart. You've got some gap osis here. Easiest way to do this is cut a piece of PVC pipe 14 inches and use that as your gauge instead of dealing with a tape measure. It's just much easier and much faster. That's what we used to do with our crews. They had a bunch of pipe that was cut to 14, and we would just lay it in this distance between and set up the hoses accordingly. When you buy this stuff, you definitely need to have a pressure reducer and a filter to keep this thing from clogging. When you buy it, you get fittings. This, of course, is a T. These are called compression fittings. Many times with these compression fittings, I have people who say that these are really hard to get into the hose. Yes, that's very true. You do have to have some hand strength. A couple of tips: a bucket of hot water, dip the hose into the bucket of hot water and shove it onto the fitting as it warms up. One from one of my students, funny story. We were doing an irrigation retrofit on our permaculture garden up at Foothill College. And Katie was in charge of that. She did the design, and we were using a bunch of students to set out the hoses and set up the fittings according to Katie's drawings. And the dean was coming by. He wanted to see what we were doing. And so when the dean comes by, you just have to make sure that everybody is being safe. Everybody is now distance. And so I look over on the table and I see two tubes, you'll never guess, of KY jelly. 2 tubes of KY jelly. I said, Katie, what the hell? What's this doing here? Oh, that's what I'm using to put the fittings together. Katie works for a CSA that has a Netafim system, and they use KY jelly on the ends of these fittings to get them to go into the hose much easier. I tried it. It works great. Put a dab of KY on the end of these fittings, shove it into the hose. KY jelly is water soluble. Once you turn the system on, that stuff disappears. That was a eureka moment for me. I had never thought of that. Leave it to Katie, but that's what they were using at these at this CSA. So these fittings come in various configurations. Here is a cross. You can get elbows, you can get couplings. This is for attaching it to a PVC pipe coming out of the ground. This is attaching it to a valve. It's 3/4 inch and 1/2 inch. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. Here's a chart with all of the different fittings. Let's see if there's a big one. Yep. This is how you tie off the ends of your tubing. This is called a figure 8. And you use the figure 8, bend your pipe over. And shove it into the ends of this fitting. I'm trying to find whether there's a one that I could show you, but I don't see one. Essentially, what you're doing is crimping the pipe and using your figure 8 to stop the water from flowing. And it would go on the end of your drip line. You also can get turner on or offers. So this is a turner on or offer that will fit. I'm looking for the one that goes on the drip line. I don't see it. Yeah, here it is. So this is a turner on or offer. So let's say, and I have these in my veggie garden. I want to turn off an area that I'm letting grow fallow for one season. Then I just turn this valve off. Everything else gets irrigated. So the different kinds of fittings are available so that you have some flexibility on how you're setting your system up. Trust me, there is no way you can screw this up. Once you start laying it out and getting your fittings in place, it's really simple. It just seems to design itself. Do I do a design on paper? Yeah, kind of. All I'm doing is trying to figure out measurements. This is a Netafim system on a water catchment system. So it's picking up water off the roof, holding it in the barrel, and it's attached to a Netafim system. Can I use this for gray water? Yeah, you can. It works for gray water also. So the system is very flexible. It's inexpensive. And I want to talk about the CV tech line to give you some ideas about what it's all about. So Techline CV is what they call this product. And it comes in both a drip line and a tight line. So the tight line has no emitters in it. That's distribution tubing. The tight line is used to run out, and you attach your emitter line to that. Do you need it? It really depends on your configuration. As to how you want to do it. So in this particular situation, this is the tech line out to the right with a manifold that's made of PVC. You can replace this manifold of PVC with tight line. You don't need the PVC. Why go through the problems of getting another product? Don't need it. You can just get a tech line that has no emitters in it and do exactly this same thing using your T fittings. So you're going to be using T's everywhere where you're making a connection. There's a T, and then you're putting in tight line T, tight line T, tight line T. What's the distance? 14 inches. Makes it real easy to do this with a piece of PVC that's cut to 14 inches. You can see the Netafim Tech Line CV on at the same time as the off brand, and you can see how well distributed the water is in comparison to this other side using the same time to water it. Configurations are easy. It just real simple stuff. If I've got a veggie bed, let's do it the proper way. If I've got a veggie bed, and let's just say that this is my veggie bed, I highly recommend going to a no-till system when you're doing veggies. I get it. People are still going to be rototilling. Unfortunately, that just destroys the soil organisms and the soil food web in that soil. But some people, you're never going to talk out of rototilling. With a Netafim system, if you're going to rototill, you can actually set it up so you pick up the whole system and flip it to one side, get in there with your rototiller, destroy the soil food web, lay your drip line back down and plant whatever you're going to plant, your veggies, whatever. So you can set that system up so you just lift the whole thing up. Real simple, and lay it aside. There are those who are using a no-till system, but they may get in there with a broad fork, and they may be using that broad fork to loosen the soil without rototilling it. You just pick these emitters, this emitter line up and push it to one side. When you're laying out your drip hose, whether it is a tight line or whether it's a emitter line, it helps to get these staples. These are called sod staples. You can buy a box of 1,000 of them for 30 bucks. The problem with this hose is that it comes tightly coiled. And when you're laying it out, it does not want to obey you. So we use these sod staples to hold our line down. These things are great because once you get them on the in the ground, they begin to rust almost immediately. What's one of the products that plants like? They like rust. They like iron oxide. It's iron. One of the things that is deficient in our soil is iron. The reason that these things are so cheap is because they rust out after about a year. But your hose is held down. You've taken the curl out of it by using these sod staples. The hose itself comes in different lengths. So I can get the hose in 100-foot lengths, 250-foot lengths, 500 feet lengths, and 1,000-foot lengths. Obviously, the more you buy, the cheaper the hose is. I think this one is yeah, this is a 250. So if you bought 100 feet versus 250 feet, you're going to pay less per foot for the 250 than you are for the 100. Conversely, you're going to spend less for the 500 feet. On the end of the line, it has a specification label. It tells you exactly what you're getting. Let me see if I can, oops. I didn't want to do that. I don't want to do that. All right, let me do this. So this label says that this is a 0.26 gallons per hour. The emitters are every 12 inches and you've got 1,000 feet of this stuff. It just tells you something about the pipe itself. You can also get it in purple pipe if you're using recycled water. There are some areas that are using recycled. We don't have a lot of recycled in our area yet, but it probably will be coming. So 100, 250 foot rolls or 500 foot rolls, 12 and 18 inch spacing on the emitters. So you have an emitter every 12 or 18. You can also get it at emitters spaced every 6 inches. If you have any questions or concerns about the Netafim system, and I've spent a lot of time on Netafim because I really like the product. I've never had one of these things clog on me. They are pressure compensating, by the way, which means that you can use Netafim on hills because it is pressure compensating. I've never had a Netafim system clog on me. I've been using the product for years now. I installed it on many of my clients' landscapes, and I have it at my own house. I have 5 drip systems at my house using Netafim. I have experimented with Netafim under lawns. In fact, there is a company down in Morgan Hill who installed Netafim. He owns a turf company, and so he wanted to see whether it would work under a lawn, and yes, it does work. They have a proprietary emitter system that does not clog. It's very well made. There's another view of that. That water comes by here, starts spinning. It kicks the particulate matter to the sides and does not clog. It's a very good system. If you go to the website, you can see all types of ways to install this stuff in your gardens, in whatever you're using. Let's go to home garden. Different configurations for the home garden. This is all Netafim. As it says here, cut the water bill in half. This looks like a large veggie bed. All types of configurations that you're going to find. Inline emitters. So this is a very nice drawing of your shutoff valve, your filter, your control valve, your pressure regulator, and then here is all of your emitters, inline emitters. So you'll find a number of ways to install this stuff. Different row spacings. The key row spacings, 14 inches. This is their new product for containers. I have not tried it yet, so I don't know whether it works. This is a very simple connection to a hose. All they're doing is a Y configuration here, watering the veggie bed using their hose instead of standing out there with the water hose in their hands. There's growing corn and planting it with a number of other vegetables. That works. Strawberries. If you're growing strawberries, you're going to probably be putting, you're probably going to buy an emitter line that is every 12 inches, and it works very well. This looks like peppers to me. Netafim with peppers. mixed plantings, kale, some lettuces in the back. Not sure what the smaller ones are up front. Works quite well on these mixed plantings. This is a very nice planting using the Netafim. There's another one. Another one. All of this is using all Netafim. So Netafim is a product I highly recommend if you're going to go to a drip system. When I started this, I asked a lot of you how many times you want to install your system. I think most of you said, I just want to install it once. I think Carol was the one who raised the finger at me. So yeah, you want to install the system at once. If we don't want to, what was the question, Danny? We want to see the tubing. Oh yeah, you can bury the tubing if you like. If you're doing a veggie bed, I recommend getting some rice straw to put over. Use that as your mulch. So one of the keys when understanding the different systems is it bacterial or fungal in nature? If you're in the woods, that woods is fungal in nature. Vegetable beds are bacterial in nature. And so the type of mulch that you use is different than if you're growing California natives. California natives like a fungal environment. Vegetables like a bacterial environment. If I'm using a Netafim system and I want to cover that hose, I can cover it with rice straw. Where do I get rice straw? Oh, there's a feed store in Redwood City that has it. There's a feed store in San Jose that has it. There's a feed store in Half Moon Bay that has it. Why do I want to get rice straw? Because it breaks down quickly and it makes my veggie bed more bacterial in nature. I see a question in there. Why am I putting soap when I'm determining the soil texture in my jar? It makes the water wetter and it allows the soil particles to slip by each other in an easier manner. It's a surfactant, and surfactants make water wetter. So that's why the dish soap. And don't get hung up on how or why. So I want to review. First thing you do, get your bucket out. Figure out how much water you've got going into your garden. Once you figure that out, then it's really easy to figure out how much drip line that you can lay out in a garden. If you've got shrub lines, all a couple of 100 feet of shrub line, it's easy to do it off of one valve. If you're retrofitting a system going from a lawn to a drip system, Netafim makes it real easy and real convenient to do that. If you're removing the spray heads, I would remove all but ones. Well, I would remove all the spray heads, stick a riser into the fitting that is closest to your valves, plug all of the others, and use that as my point of connection. Attach my drip filter, my pressure reducer, and connect my Netafim at that point to run onto my new system. So let me tell you a little story about a house that from a student of mine. Her name was Donna, and she lived in Sunnyvale on one of those houses, one of those streets that was a horseshoe. And she says, Frank, would you be willing to come to my house and help me convert my lawn to a drip system because I want to plant veggies? I said, yeah, sure, Donna, I'll come down and help you. So I came down to Donna's house, and she had a little house, veggie, or the lawn in the front was about 20 by 20. And she wanted to get rid of all the pop-up heads. So my job was to convert the pop-up heads to a drip system. I chose Netafim. She was laying down cardboard, compost, and mulch in the form of rice straw to kill the lawn. By about 10:30, I had the irrigation system modified, and two of her neighbors were with her, or three of her neighbors were with her, because they wanted to see how I was doing this. And they were going to convert their own places using this system. So we got everything done by about 12:30, went in and ate. Her mother was visiting from Japan. Very nice lunch, really excellent food. That afternoon we planted. 2:30 in the afternoon, we had completely converted her lawn to a drip system and a vegetable bed in her front yard. The three neighbors then converted theirs to a drip system and a vegetable garden. Currently, there's 45 houses on that circle that have converted their front lawns to the system that I showed them how to do, and they're growing vegetables. They have formed a co-op, and they share vegetables from all 45 houses with each other. They don't go to Whole Foods. They don't buy any vegetables. Each house is designated what they're going to grow. They're changing crops at each house. It's all off a Netafim system, and it works. 45 houses saving water and growing vegetables. You can't eat lawn, my friends, but you can sure eat some vegetables. Any questions, concerns, problems, issues?
I have, Frank, I have a couple questions that came in during your talk. One was from Kate, and this goes back to more the beginning of your talk. 480 if on one valve. I think that was the amount of water, 480.
Yes, you can actually put 480 feet of this Netafim using 0.9 gallons per hour, all on one valve. No problem. If you've got 480 gallons coming in, you can put 480 feet of Netafim on one valve. So that's why it's key to measure that water.
Okay, another question was, any tips to discourage animals from biting holes in surface irrigation lines?
That's a tough one. Cover them. If they don't see them, there's less of a tendency for them to do damage to them. You can also bury the drip lines 2 inches down. So we're going to be doing an apricot field in Los Altos at the Civic Center there. We're actually going to be burying the irrigation drip hose 2 inches down. They won't dig it up. But you can put some rice straw if you're doing veggies, or a thick layer of mulch if you're doing ornamentals. You can use redwood bark, gorilla hair, whatever your favorite mulch is.
Okay. Okay, another question from Cynthia. Do your students ever help with community projects? Our K-8 edible school needs help with our irrigation.
That's a sometimes. Sometimes students will do a pro bono. I work with Living Classroom in Mountain View and Palo Alto. We've been supporting Living Classroom for about 8 years now. One of my former students, Patty Berryhill, is with Living Classroom. She's one of the managers there. And I do pro bono work with her, as do some of my students. It really depends on the individual school. Let me put this very bluntly. We're not going to be doing a Hillsborough school pro bono. We will go into some of the schools that are depressed and work with them.
Okay, a follow-up, she says, we have some grant funding for our edible school garden.
I would suggest you shoot me an email, Cynthia. You've got my email address, and you and I can talk offline about this.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, what's your opinion of Peninsula Irrigation Company? Geez, I don't know those guys anymore. At one time, they were owned by a guy by the name of Pete Nedwick. I don't know who owns them currently. I don't think Pete still has it. You're welcome, Cynthia, anytime. Any other questions? What's the square root of 134? 13.78. That was a good question for those who have asked that question. What time is it?
Okay.
2 minutes to spare. Not bad. So I
Okay.
encourage you to get out there and install these drip systems. They, as I said, will save you anywhere from 39 to 79% of your irrigation. And now I'm going to make a blatant plug for Foothill College. If you want to increase your knowledge, come to Foothill College. Even if you're a master gardener, we have master gardeners coming to Foothill College because our courses are significantly more than the master gardeners. One of your master gardeners, Carolyn, is working there at the Arboretum today. She's in my classes. Very smart woman, by the way. So come on up. We're offering integrated pest management in the spring if you want to figure out how to manage your systems without chemicals. I'm an expert in that. We also will be teaching soils next quarter. We're teaching urban environmental landscape. We're teaching, oh gosh, what else? Hands-on work, how to prune, all types of great courses. So look at the Foothill website. I am the director of that program. We are making some significant changes up there. We are going to be offering a community-based class system in, I hope, about a year. We are going to jail. We are actually going into the juvenile detention center in 2 places. And we're also going to Elmwood. We're going to be teaching prisoners. This is a big push for us. We're hoping that we can keep that recidivism rate down. I would like think the filter covered Netafim would be a bit more rodent proof. It's pretty tough. Please teach the women at Elmwood. Yeah, Elmwood, we are going to be in the women's prison down at Elmwood also. I'm very, very committed to doing this. I've been trying to get in. I've been trying to go to jail since 2013. And we finally are accomplishing this 8 years later, but who's counting?
Okay, well, if there's no more questions, I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you, Frank, for the excellent present. Did you have any final words to say, Frank?
Never trust a smiling goldfish.
Okay. Okay, I think we all learned some good basics about setting up a drip system, and we appreciate you spending time with us. In a few days, this is to the participants, you'll be emailed a link to a recording of the presentation and an evaluation form. Any unanswered questions can be addressed at that time. We would appreciate any feedback you might give us so that we can improve from your comments. Please join us for future seminars and workshops. On December 4th, we'll have our annual wreath workshop. Check our website for additional information on that. Again, thank you, Frank. Thanks to Kevin Wilkinson, who's our Zoom technical specialist, and also Bosca for their help in getting this seminar going. If you're interested in volunteering at the Arboretum, you can email us at info@sanmataoarboretum.org. Just go to our website. Thank you for joining us today. The program is now finished.
See everybody later.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.